وسهلا بكل الذين ينضموا للاستماع إلى راديو بلدي، أول راديو عربي أمريكي ويعنى بقضايا العرب في المهجر. برامجنا في راديو بلدي كل يوم جمعة من 8 وحتى 9 صباحا في بث حي ومباشر عبر WNZK Radio 690 AM. صباح الخير بلدي، صباح الخير لكل مستمعينا.
Welcome to Radio Baladi, the first Arab, Middle Eastern, and American simulcast radio show. Radio Baladi is broadcast every Friday morning on WNZK 690 AM from 8 until 9 Eastern Time on Good Morning, Michigan. Our call-in number 248-557-3300. And now, stay tuned for the best radio talk show on Arab and American issues.
And this is season 4, episode 33 of Two Guys on Politics, broadcasting on the U.S. Arab Radio Network in Michigan on WNZK AM 690 radio, as well as on YouTube at twoguysonpolitics.com. I'm Ray Hanania with my co-host, former Congressman Bill Lipinski, and we're joined by our special guest today, the Mickey Mantle of Media Strategy and Consulting in Chicagoland and Illinois, Thom Serafin. And I bring up Mickey Mantle in deference to the election changes we've had in New York. So before we start, let's take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll talk with Bill Lipinski and Thom Serafin. We'll be right back right after these messages.
Lead is invisible, but the dangers are real. Michigan's blood lead testing law aims to help identify exposure to lead in young children. All children should be tested for lead at ages 1 and 2. If they've never been tested, they should get a test by age 6. To help your child stay healthy, talk to their doctor about a blood lead test or visit michigan.gov/myleadsafe. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
ألو، صباح الخير حماتي. بدي أشكيلك إنه من يوم ما زوجي أكل عندكن آخر مرة ما بقى رضي ياكل من طبخي، كل يوم بيطلب أكلة رز من عندكن. كرمال الله خبريني شو السر؟
بسيطة، هذا رز محمود سيلة.
بجد؟ وشو المميز فيه؟
عدي على أصابعك، سهل الطبخ، حبة طويلة، ولونه الأبيض الناصع بزين أي سفرة.
وشو كمان؟ شوقتيني.
ريحته بتفتح النفس، وبناتي ما بيستعملوا غيره لأنه خفيف على المعدة وبيخليكي نحيفة يا بعدي.
أيوة، هلأ فهمت. الله يخلي لي ياكي يا حماتي، صار لازم بدل رز محمود.
الرز محمود سيلة، كل حبة نختارها بعناية من حقولنا الغنية لتصل إلى مائدتك العامرة. اطلبيه الآن من أقرب سوبر ماركت لديك.
رز محمود صحي وطيب.
Arab Center Washington, D.C. was established in 2015 to serve as a Washington-based authoritative research center on the Arab world and U.S. policies in the region. My name is Khalil Jahshan, and I'm the Executive Director of Arab Center, Washington, D.C.
I am Tamara Kharroub. I'm the Deputy Executive Director and Senior Fellow here. Our mission at Arab Center, Washington, D.C. has been to provide Arab perspectives to U.S. policy conversations and to highlight rights-centered approaches to policymaking as a way to serve the causes of human rights, democracy, just and peaceful resolution to conflict, and constructive long-term U.S. interest in the region.
Our work also addresses fundamental aspects of U.S.-Arab relations through timely and objective academic research, policy analysis, and educational exchange, reaching millions of people here in the United States and around the world.
Since our inception, we invested in producing reliable, evidence-based, and inclusive analysis on important issues shaping the Middle East and North Africa.
We would like to invite you personally to check out our publications and events at arabcenterdc.org.
And please follow our social media platforms for timely responses to news, events, and current affairs.
arabcenterdc.org. Tired of the complexities of immigration? Haunted by the threat of deportation? Struggling to reunite with your family? Have you ever dreamed of living and working legally in America but don't know where to start? L. Sharnobi and Associates Law Firm, a leader in immigration and naturalization law, offers you legal support across the United States. We specialize in asylum, deportation defense, green cards and citizenship, family reunification, all types of immigration visas. Don't wait any longer. Contact us today and let our expertise lead you toward a secure and stable future. To schedule a consultation, call us at 313-581-9666. That's 313-581-9666.
Thom, we're so proud to have you on the program today. Before we get into the issues, tell us a little bit about your history in politics and in media. How did that all happen, and what have you done?
I grew up in Milwaukee, and our adjoining parish, St. Boniface, is where Father Jim Groppe was. And he marched 465 days in a row for open housing in Milwaukee. And that was part of what we did as kids. I ended up in the seminary, St. Francis Seminary, for a couple of your first 2 years of college in the south side of Milwaukee. And, we got into a lot of street fights, and my parents moved out of town, literally, for a better neighborhood and a safer place. And we ended up in Peoria, and I ended up in university, and I met Paul Simon, who, got me into the world of journalism. And I covered Springfield, the legislature, for years, ended up in Washington, D.C. with Alan Dixon's staff, and then worked for Congressman Rostenkowski for 3 or 4 of his elections. And, actually helped him, make the deal over Channel 32 where he became a commentator. In fact, interesting, 4 times he broke that appointment with me. And the 5th time he said, "Serafin, nobody wants to talk to me." I said, "Mr. Chairman," I said, "you're going to be great." And we walked up the marble steps at the Channel 32 studios, and we get to the top of the steps, open the beautiful big glass doors, and there's a big cutout, human-sized cutout of Seinfeld. And he says, "Is this the station that has Seinfeld?" I said, "Yes, sir." Like Seinfeld. He walked into the president's office, the general manager. Walter was there, Deborah Juarez, everybody was there, and he charmed them for an hour and a half, and he left the office. I said, "Man, you were good." And he said, he was, he's a character. And he went back home, and I stayed, worked out a deal for him, and he was on the air the following Monday, and then he was on there forever, and he was really, really good at it. So I've been blessed in many ways, and I've been involved in a lot of elections, and I got a chance to meet the congressman early on in the 70s, and I learned to love it, and covered the Illinois legislature as a member of the Springfield Correspondents Association, and had worked for Bill Miller at the time, and he broadcast for WBBM, KMOX out of St. Louis, and a couple of people had asked me to be their press secretaries in campaigns, and I hooked up with a gentleman by the name of Alex Seith, who introduced me to the congressman many, many, many years ago in the 23rd Ward, I think it was, sir. And, and he could speak a dozen languages. I learned a lot from him. Very bright guy, but he had a problem on the campaign trail, with meeting with people, because he always talked over them. But he was, worked his buns off, and took Chuck Percy down to the last weekend, and ended up losing that campaign. And eventually I ended up on the staff of Alan Dixon in Washington, and worked for Congress Rostenkowski for 6, 7 terms. It's been a long road for me. I've been in the business for 50 years plus, right. And learned from the ground up. I grew up in Milwaukee. I didn't have a godfather or a mentor or anything, but I've enjoyed my time here in the city, and I'm really really pleased that I can share a microphone with the congressman and with you, Ray.
So, answer this question: what's Milwaukee's famous beer?
Well, we had a lot of them. We had Blast, we had Schlitz,
That's right.
I'm from
Blast,
Milwaukee, right? And I ought to know.
Right,
it's draft brewed Blast beer wherever you go.
That was the one. Now you don't hear about that beer anymore.
Hams, the beer refreshes, And my high school was only about 4 blocks from the Schlitz Brewery. And eventually they did that show on television with Schlitz Brewery. Right. That was the old Schlitz Brewery.
Yeah, that's phenomenal. We're Bill and I are really happy to have you on the program today. Let's talk a little bit about New York's. Well, we have the elections Tuesday, but let's start with New York. Zohran Mamdani defeated Andrew Cuomo for the second time in the same election cycle. He beat him in the Democratic primary, and that just people were so enraged that they got Andrew to run again as an independent, and he lost again. But it was over 2 million votes, and I think the turnout was pretty high. It was like 45%. It was a lot of people came out in that election. And Mamdani had over 51% of the election vote. What did you make of what happened and why?
I thought he had the right message on the campaign trail. Unfortunately, like in many big cities, it's difficult to run and manage those towns. We have the same problem in the city of Chicago. So people reach out for those people that are promising everything. I mean, one of his quotes that I have here is that we will prove that there is no problem too large for government to solve and no concern too small for it to care about. I mean, my goodness, it's like the great chancellor from Germany. I forget her name now, but she said, the problem with socialism is eventually you run out of people to pay for it. Money to pay for it. So, I mean, he's got, when you go out there and promise things, free transportation on the city buses, which probably is a good idea for certain economic individuals that are just stuck in a hole. But, people need to pay their fair share. And unfortunately, people feel no longer that is the going operations,
Bill, what do you think? What do you think about it? I know you're a big Mamdani supporter.
Well, I would certainly agree with everything that Thom had to say, but I would also add the fact that in the last 2 to 3 weeks of the campaign, your man ran a different campaign that he plans on governing on. He was very enthusiastic. He was very upfront with people. He was very nice with people. He went out of his way to be accommodating. He didn't talk about many of the radical positions that he held before the campaign started, and apparently he holds once again after he has been elected. I was very disappointed in the press conference that he had right after he was elected. I was very disappointed in the interview that he had with the New York Times and the things that he talked about. Ray, I'm sure that you have read the Democratic Socialist Party of America's agenda. I have read it. I assume Thom may have read it. That's really an awfully radical agenda. I really don't think that it would work anyplace other than in New York City. Now, on the positive side, as I say, he ran an excellent campaign. He minimized the controversial positions that he has taken. But now that he is mayor, I'm very concerned about the situation for New York. I don't really think that agenda sells any place other than New York City. But probably the most amazing thing to me is that 20% of the Jewish vote in New York City voted for him. So obviously his theme about affordability came through even to people who you might think would not be supportive of him.
Well, a lot of the Jewish American voters in New York are not big supporters of Benjamin Netanyahu. And, there's an interesting thing. Let's go back to this democratic socialism. The term democratic socialism is twisted and expanded and defined by everybody in any political way they want to either destroy somebody or undermine somebody. His definition, and I think the traditional one that I've seen over the years, is it defines someone who believes that the economy is run to benefit the majority, not just the few. Now, I think that's the message that he presented to the voters. And I think he, embraced that description, democratic socialist. A lot of people didn't say democratic socialist. They just said he was a socialist. And when you think of a socialist, you think of Stalin and a few other people, going back to World War II. So it was more of a derogatory thing. And the last thing, I think there were a lot of people that looked at the candidates and said, look at Andrew Cuomo, surrounded by controversy, accused of screwing up the COVID contracts and, getting health care to some of the victims of COVID during that period when he was governor in New York. And then these multiple charges of him sexually harassing dozens of women in office. And Eric Adams, the mayor of New York, he had to run as an independent because he was in so much trouble. He was going to be charged with corruption and bribery. I think he tried to bribe a Turkish official that was in New York. And then Trump saved him and said, hey, listen, get out of the race and support Cuomo. And sure enough, those charges were dropped by the Justice Department right after.
But Ray, what you just had to say there indicates that your man ran against weak opponents in the first place. So
yes, absolutely.
I don't see his a little over 51% as any kind of real mandate like he is talking about. And I want to go back to the Democratic Socialist agenda. I know that you have read it. I know that you don't want to talk about it, and I can understand that from your perspective. But I think on this program, in the near future, we should really discuss it. And I'd like to have Thom on there as a neutral party, because I come from one perspective on him, you come from another perspective on him.
Well, let's say, listen, Thom, what do you make of when you look at Mamdani and his proposals? I mean, we kind of talked about, why we think he won. He touched on some issues that a lot of voters, may or may not have understood or did understand or were sensitive to. But what about this issue? I mean, because Trump is playing that up, isn't he? He called him a communist. Lindsey Graham called him a communist. I think Johnson called him a communist. What about that aspect of it? What do you think about all that, Thom?
Well, he's still very, very, very young politically in understanding how to move legislation and how to bring people together. I mean, he in his victory speech, he said, "So hear me out, President Trump. When I say this, to get to any New Yorker, you will have to go through me first." And I'm thinking to myself, now that's the federal government. They have the largesse. They have everything right there. Why would you upset the one person that can be helpful to you in moving funds to New York? Listen, the president loves New York. He's a New Yorker. He may live in Florida, but he still thinks of himself as a New York City kid. That's where he made his chops. He wants to be able to be that person. Even in the legislature, when the new mayor was there, he voted against a proposal that offered free busing because of a larger initiative that he was trying to make a point. So, yes, in the particular situation, as the congressman says, he ran against two individuals that could not win a race for dog catcher. I mean, and so he had the perfect storm. He had a very fractured Democratic Party and no Republican Party. So and then. My goodness, Cuomo, he's been all over the place. He put senior citizens in the home to get. I mean, there's nothing good about the opponents.
What does it say, though, about politics when they put up candidates who couldn't run who couldn't win as dog catcher? What does it say about the Democratic Party in New York when that side of the party backs people like that? And it wasn't like it wasn't known, right, that they were in trouble. They just didn't believe Mamdani was going to win, I think, and that's why they went with those two candidates.
And you make the case for Mamdani. He was trying to make it life affordable for the lower half of our society that don't seem to be able to get anywhere. Every time you take two steps forward, you have to take another step backwards. And with the technical revolution and the AI, a lot of people are losing their jobs that thought they were immune to losing their jobs. So he was the perfect message at the perfect time with opponents that were fractured and crippled. And so the organization's trying to hold on to something that's disappearing, and it shows the people upstairs that are making all these decisions are out of touch, which is the reason you have a candidate like Mamdani succeeding.
And Bill, what does it say about the Democratic Party when we, when the Democrats put up candidates who are, retreads or just, can't win as the postal, worker?
Well, as I have said to you privately and maybe publicly, I was hoping that your man would win because I want to see your man become the face of the National Democratic Party. And I want to see him be the Democrats' candidate for president and AOC be the candidate for vice president the next
I think
time
they get a
around.
lot of votes.
So the Democratic Party will crash and burn. Yes, they'll get a lot of votes in New York City once again, and they'll get a lot of votes in some radical areas in the United States. But I doubt that that combination can get 30% of the vote in a nationwide election.
Hasn't the Democratic Party crashed and burned?
May I finish, please? So I want to see the Democratic Party crash and burn, and out of the ashes, I hope we will have a new Democratic Party that truly represents the middle class and the lower class. And once the Republicans get rid of Trump, I hope they go back to being primarily, the golf course party or the social party or whatever you want to call them, representing the views that they had. That's the America that succeeded. That's the America I would like to see once again.
Now, hasn't the Democratic Party crashed and burned already? Come on.
No,
you want to see the Democratic? They haven't under Trump. We came back.
They won New Jersey governorship. They won the governorship in Virginia, and they won by larger margins than they were expected to win. And that's because I believe there is a definite backlash against President Trump in his bombastic way of trying to handle things.
Well, isn't it also that those are three big blue states? I mean, give me a break. If the Democrats can't win their own blue states, then that just shows you how terrible they are.
But
so they did do better.
It was the margin of victory that those two candidates have that shows that the Republican Party had definitely lost support amongst independents and against Hispanics who were definitely going in their direction.
Thom, what do you make of that?
Well,
crash and burn, and did Trump really lose big in those blue states?
I thought he lost where he was supposed to lose. Has been losing for 3 or 4 decades. Not him, but the Republican Party.
Right.
So I think deeper into the legislature and into some of the city elections, I thought that's where the Republicans kind of were surprised with some of their losses, but not up on top. I mean, they had bad candidates. It was never going to go anywhere. As Mamdani said in his speech, whose city? Our city. Who runs it? We do. Who's going to fix it? We are. Well, guess what? You both know about government, and you just can't do that. They want to do it for the 26 elections and the 28 cycle. It's not going to get done the way New York runs their operation. I love the enthusiasm. I love the attitude that we need to fix it. And we need to give and help people out, pull them up by their bootstraps and give them an opportunity. That's the party of the Democratic Party that I grew up with in the 60s and 70s. My dad was he carried the card, the Democratic card. He was proud of it. Humphrey, Kennedy. I mean, Proxmire. I mean, there were some Moynihan. There were some terrific Democrats, including the congressman who opened up Midway Airport and gave us the opportunity to be able to take the train from downtown out to Midway. I mean, but they had to work at it. It just doesn't happen. And so this young man's going to have to learn how to do that and surround himself with competent people. He can't be picking fights, because if you pick fights, you're going to lose.
Well, I mean, Trump came out and said that, the choice was communism or common sense. He didn't even use the phrase democratic socialism. They just threw names at him. I think that's the big mistake. And I think the country is polarized. And little by little, we're starting to see that nobody's really addressing the real issues. What they're doing is they're just throwing names at each other. Johnson blames the Democrats for, the government shutdown. But it's Johnson and the Republicans that control the Congress. If they wanted to open it up, they could, but they can't seem to do that. So I don't know. It just seems like...
Well, on that, you have a filibuster issue. You have the 60 votes there in the Senate. So the Democrats are part of the solution. They hold the key. Republicans might hold the key. They have half a key. I think the Democrats got the key to the door. And if they could open the door, they should. I think they're doing a good job, but also the first person, the first fatality, at an airport, the first fatality with a government worker somewhere where we should have been more responsible and equipped. I just don't want that to happen to this country because that's going to be terrible.
What do you think, Bill?
All this shutdown is doing is driving citizens of this country more and more apart. And we are far enough apart as it is now. It is going to be extremely difficult for us to once again become one nation under God, indivisible, to be perfectly frank, because we've driven ourselves so far apart. And one of the reasons for that is too many Americans have sat back, not gotten involved in their government because they're living a pretty good life, so they don't want to be bothered. But they're going to be bothered personally very, very shortly. And I'm frankly finished with this subject, so you and Thom can carry it on. But I've said all I'm going to say.
All right. Well, no, I get that. And then what about the government shutdown, Bill? Do you think that do you blame the Republicans or the Democrats? Thom pointed out that the filibuster, which is being driven by the Democrats, is kind of the big obstacle, right? Who do we blame?
Well, I think both parties are to blame. I think that the Democrats, though, are winning the voters on this particular issue because of, once again, the way so many things that Trump does, he has done in such a heavy-handed way. People just don't like that. And I think that's why he's losing support from people. And that's why the Republicans are losing support from people. And I believe that if it continues to go the way it's been going, that the Republicans are going to have to capitulate to the Democrats.
I think that the filibuster is a good alternative for good leadership and the ability to bring people together. And I don't think the Democrats have it. And I think Mamdani, he came up with a lot of great ideas. He wants to make the city safer. He wants to make it more affordable. He wants to impose a 2% tax on people that make $1 million or more a year. These are things that I think we should be doing in Illinois. We should be imposing a tax on people that make $1 million a year instead of taxing, the people of Illinois and forcing us to pay more every year. It's like we pay more and more for less and less service. So Mamdani said what needed to be said. Why aren't the Democrats doing that? I just don't hear the Democrats talking about the issues that the voters want to hear. Is that part of the problem that opens the door to somebody like Mamdani that's far left wing?
I'm finished talking. I've had my say on this issue, backwards and forwards and up and down.
All right.
You and Thom, if you want to keep going.
Thom, any last words on Mamdani, the election, the economy, and the government shutdown?
No, but you get a lot more sitting down and talking to each other in a quiet room than you do getting on a podium yelling at each other. I think the congressman is absolutely correct on that. And the city with the weight of the world as New York has on it, the financial markets, a lot of people have left New York for Florida and other southern states. I just don't want that to happen. New York will never, ever, ever be gone. They'll have the rough times ahead, but New York will always be the greatest city in the world. I just don't wish any bad things on it. You saw all the cops, the New York cops that retired, after the election. I mean, my goodness, scores of them, because they don't want to lose their pensions. They don't want to be in trouble. They don't want to be called on the carpet. They don't want to go out on a call without any backup support. So you got to be able to communicate and be rational. Just have to be rational about it.
All right. Anyway, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to continue talking with myself, Ray Hanania, former Congressman Bill Lipinski, and our guest, Thom Serafin, a longtime media political consultant and strategist, probably one of the most well-known. You and David Axelrod are probably the two political people that I think of when I think about political strategy, and Bill Lipinski, because Bill's memory is phenomenal. Yeah. And he goes back, he knows the system from top to bottom. Let's take a quick break and we'll be right back right after these messages.
Life for Relief and Development has now been rated as one of the best charities for humanitarian aid. Life's humanitarian projects span the globe, and Life is celebrating its 30th anniversary of providing essential life-saving aid to people and communities in 36 countries, regardless of race, color, religion, or cultural background. Where there is life, there is hope. And when disaster occurs here or around the world, including being one of the first responders to the Turkey-Syria earthquake crisis, Life for Relief and Development rushes in to provide food, medical aid, and shelter to those in need. We are looking to help the earthquake victims, and we take 0% overhead on emergency donations. So please help improve these efforts. Learn more about our involvement to help the helpless and bring hope where it's needed most, and make your tax-deductible donation to Life for Relief and Development now at lifeusa.org or call 248-424-7493. That's 248-424-7493.
A car accident can change your life in an instant. As a result of a car accident, you may become unemployed. As a result of a car accident, you may need a lot of medical treatment. People think that insurance companies are on their side. Why? Because they're giving them one or two benefits. Are they giving them all the benefits they deserve? How would one know unless you consult with an attorney? Call the law offices of Jumana Kiruz at 248-557-3645. 248-557-3645.
With more than 30,000 successful in vitro fertilizations, IVF Michigan is now ranked as one of America's best fertility clinics according to Newsweek magazine. IVF Michigan fertility centers are the recognized leaders in high-quality fertility care. With locations in Bloomfield Hills and 9 other cities in Michigan and Ohio, IVF has experts in all aspects of the field. A founding member, American board-certified Dr. Nicholas Shama, is one of the leading reproductive endocrinologists in Michigan and Ohio. He has performed over 20,000 successful IVF cases, and it's helped thousands of couples fulfill their dreams of parenthood. When it's time to get personalized care from Dr. Nicholas Shama at one of America's best fertility clinics, call IVF Michigan Fertility Centers in Michigan and Ohio at 248-487-8084. That's 248-487-8084.
الو
صباح الخير حماتي، بدي اشكيلك انه من يوم ما زوجي اكل عندكن اخر مرة ما بقى رضي ياكل من طبخي، كل يوم بيطلب اكلة رز من عندكن. كرمال الله خبريني شو السر.
بسيطة، هذا رز محمود سيلة.
بجد؟ وشو المميز فيه؟
عدي على أصابعك، سهل الطبخ، حبة طويلة، ولونه الأبيض الناصع بزين أي سفرة.
وشو كمان؟ شوقتيني.
ريحته بتفتح النفس، وبناتي ما بيستعملوا غيره لأنه خفيف على المعدة وبيخليكي نحيفة يا بعدي.
أيوة هلأ فهمت. الله يخلي لي إياكي يا حماتي، صار لازم بدل لرز محمود.
رز محمود سيلة، كل حبة نختارها بعناية من حقولنا الغنية لتصل إلى مائدتك العامرة. اطلبيه الآن من أقرب سوبر ماركت لديك.
رز محمود صحي وطيب.
And welcome back to Two Guys on Politics. This is Ray Hanania with my great compatriots here, former Congressman Bill Lipinski and Thom Serafin, who I like to again say the Mickey Mantle of political consulting in Chicagoland and Illinois. The guy has the depth. And we're really honored to have you on the show, Thom. Really, it's just a pleasure to have you on.
Yes, I thank you very much for being on, Thom. We appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
And you can strengthen Bill's, position against me during these debates.
My position needs no straightening.
No, I didn't say straightening, strengthening, not straightening. You always have a good position, Bill. The elections, I know they're, a couple of years off, but we keep seeing everybody in Chicago and Illinois talking about running. Rahm Emanuel, J.B. Pritzker. It's almost as if it transitioned him from being what I felt was a terrible governor to somebody whose speeches suddenly miraculously have completely changed now that he's, running, he wants to run for president. And it's opened up the election flower, I guess, to talk about who's going to run for mayor of Chicago. With all that in the background, you think Mayor Johnson can win re-election or make it into the runoff when he runs, given all the things that are happening and the changes around the world, around the country?
Well, I thought before the New York election that the mayor would make the runoff, and now I'm confident that the mayor will make the runoff, because the New York is an example of what the mayor here is trying to do, and now he has other people winning those kinds of elections. And from my vantage point, I don't see any other African-American candidate winning that community's vote the way he has been able to do it. And now he's got this Chicago Teachers Union, the leader now running the state teachers union, have access to more money. One of the better organizations in the city currently, probably the best organization to getting the vote out right now, teachers union, and they're in his pocket or he's in their pocket. Either way you look at it, I don't see him not making the runoff.
Well, Bill, as a Democrat, and again, I'm not saying you're for or against Mayor Johnson, but what would you do? What do Democrats have to do? If Johnson represents the far left, what does the center have to do to bring about change? I mean, how do you deal with somebody like Mamdani and Johnson?
First of all, you have to have a candidate. I don't know who that candidate is going to be.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see anybody emerging at the present time. Now, I still think it's rather early. But in looking at it, because you keep forcing me to look at the situation, because you're interested in it, I still don't find anybody that's going to run against them. And somebody once said, you can't beat somebody with nobody. And until we find someone emerge and see what kind of positions that individual takes, I assume he'll be reelected. Even though I've had people that live in New York and around New York calling me, texting me, emailing me since the New York election, saying, how does it feel to live under a communist? Okay? Now, they're being somewhat facetious, but they contend that Johnson is so far left that he's a socialist, he's a communist, and now they're going to have to put up with the same thing. Now, I don't think he's a communist. I don't think he's a socialist. I frankly think he's just very inept. And if it wasn't for the teachers union, he'd be back trying to organize for them.
Yeah, but I mean, that's it. It doesn't matter who's going to run. It's what are they going to say? They're going to come at him, and maybe you're not saying it, but a lot of people are going to say that Johnson is a communist, or he's a socialist, or he's a Mamdani socialist. What do you say to that image, though, to tell voters that that's not the right choice? This is why you should come to me, whoever that voice is. What does the next candidate have to say, Thom, that would draw voters to them in this context?
Well, I think the opponents, whoever they may or may not be, as the congressman says, you need an opponent, somebody to run. But all they have to do is take a look at the public record. You could design a platform around the current public record, and the same thing in New York as you go forward. The same inexperience that we have in Chicago, they're going to see in New York City. In fact, New York is going to be even harder to deal with than a city here. And I talked to a couple aldermen last week, a week and a half ago, about the head tax. And they were kind of, nodding. He said, how many employees do some of your clients have? I said, 500, 1,000. Oh, okay. I mean, we're taking a look at it. There wasn't any kind of real alarm or concern over the proposed head tax of $21. I mean, holy cow. Rahm, when he was the mayor, he took it away when it was it 4.5 or 14? I don't remember what the number was, but $21 a head tax. Business, you could tax business the way you talk about it in some ways, where it could be cooperative in helping employ more people. But in the current situation, the climate we have with what AI is doing to businesses and making it easier to go anywhere and do anything, you have to covet the employers. You have to covet jobs. Democrats and Republicans need jobs. We need jobs. We need jobs. And the people that create those jobs are being forced to leave town. And I don't understand that. There doesn't seem to be any alarm there at all.
Bill, what do you think?
It's going to happen in New York City also. And I think it's already happened to a certain extent here in Chicago. And certainly if he would be reelected, there would be a much more significant exodus, an exodus from Chicago.
Yeah, exodus. But listen, what about the taxpayers? I mean, every time it's either the businesses that get slammed or the taxpayers. My property taxes are huge. The taxes that I pay, and I don't blame everything on the Democrats. I blame it a lot on Trump. He keeps saying everything is going to be better, but I'm paying 5 times more for a Diet Coke. It used to cost me $1.10, or 2 or 3 times more. It's like $2.79, and that's just in the last 4 years. That to me, it's like, and I blame Biden. What do you say to taxpayers that, hey, he's terrible, and tell me a time when Chicago wasn't terrible, when they didn't have all the problems that Brandon Johnson faces? I mean, was there ever a time when those problems didn't exist, they were unanswerable?
When Richard J. Daley was mayor of Chicago.
We got to go back to the 1950s. Yeah, maybe. I mean, how do you deal with that? Tom, I mean, it's
you have
like,
to be practical. That's how you deal with it. Okay. You have to sit down. You have to reason with people. You have to compromise.
So is that his problem? You think Johnson doesn't kind of outreach to reasonable people, or is it that reasonable people don't want to be associated with them? What do you think? Anybody?
My attitude is, in his office currently, you need people that have experience, and you need people to understand how to run a city.
Right.
But Brian Boyer told me a long time ago, former Sun-Times reporter, he
Right.
told me, he said, politics was a sex, and, having the baby was government. It's really a different kind of job.
Yeah.
And so you really have to work at it. And it's like the congressman says, you have to sit down behind closed doors and be reasonable with each other. But you also have the big thinkers. We're in jeopardy of losing maybe 2 great franchises, the White Sox and the Bears, from the city of Chicago. Do they provide any economic impact in the city? I think so. But there's nobody out there coming up with a big idea to help keep them. Then rebuilding the West Side and making that a stadium campus with more schools and put a version of the crosstown in. Nobody wants to do that, but both parties would put up $1 billion. And then the guy in the White House right now who likes to build cities would probably put up another 2 or match each one. And we'd have $4 billion to rebuild the West Side and put the campus for the 2 stadiums there and rebuild that part of the world and design schools around the students rather than around the adults. But, nobody thinks that way. Thomas Jefferson made this statement a long time ago, and I love it. And Jerry Ford really kind of made it famous. A government big enough to give you everything you want is big enough to take away everything that you have.
Excellent.
And that's the way that people think today, unfortunately.
Any thoughts, Bill?
No, I've already given my thoughts on the subject. Right. I'll be happy to do it when we get closer to the election, if we ever find an opponent for Johnson.
All right, let me end it with this question about the environment today. Are voters ready to refocus on the issues as opposed to refocusing on the partisan and polarization? In other words, people that we're polarized today because people aren't looking at issues. They're looking at Trump and saying, I'm a Trump supporter. They don't look at what he's doing. And people that are on the left are not looking at Trump saying, that these are the issues we need. They're saying, I hate Trump. Can we get voters to start looking at issues and get away from the polarization? Is that going to happen, or does it need to happen?
Oh, I think it definitely needs to happen. I don't think that people on the left realize some of the good ideas that Trump has had, some of the good things that Trump has done because of his personality. I think his personality, unfortunately, just overwhelms people sometimes, and people don't like that. By the same token, I think that things on the left, things that are championed by the left wing of the Democratic Party, are probably beneficial to this country also. But the people on the right, they don't want to hear it. They don't want to listen to it. You're a left winger, I'm against you. You're a right winger, I'm against you. We have to move beyond that. And I don't know that the political parties can do that. That's why I say each and every citizen has got to get off the couch, get out and support some people who have common sense, some people who want to bring this country together once again.
What do you think, Thom?
Well, I think there's going to be a window. Most people don't, I'm concerned about the Democratic Party in that they continue to have this Trump derangement syndrome because they keep chasing him. And you're so close to the 26 midterms where you should be successful as a Democrat in the off-year elections when you have a Republican in the White House. Also, you're close to 28. You need to start grooming a presidential team of some sort. Who is on the bench there? They continue to chase Trump, and Trump continues to throw these shiny objects on the road, and everybody chases those things. He's a lame duck, as far as I'm concerned, going into next year. He's doing everything he can not to be a lame duck. And he's got this consistent, overwhelming speed of moving issues on a daily basis. He understands the media better than anybody I've ever run up against in my entire lifetime. Every day he's pushing that cycle of news. Every day it's loaded with stuff. And the Democrats need to understand how to get in front of it with the right kind of team and then begin talking about what their vision of this country should be, what they want to be able to do at the local municipal levels. And they need to help this kid in New York City because, people are going to be looking to him as the barometer because Republicans are going to be pointing to him. So the party needs to get some leadership internally. I don't see that. I do think that once Trump is gone, he'll still be playing on the sidelines everywhere. He'll still be everywhere. You're going to see him everywhere because that's his attitude. But the Democrats need a leader. They need a leader.
Yeah, I agree with both of you guys on this issue. I think you both hit the nail on the head. One of the big issues that Trump has created is, and maybe you can blame it on both sides, but they have ICE coming into areas to crack down on illegal aliens. That depends on whether you're on the left or the right, how you define them and how you label them. Are they undocumented? Are they immigrants? Are they illegal aliens? ICE comes in, they target areas. There's some confusion about, are they targeting people that are wanted, that they identify as breaking the law? Or are they just going into ethnic areas, targeting blue states, where they believe the Democrats rely on the support, for the immigrant or illegal alien community. Bill, what do you think about this ICE war that we're seeing, this and the backlash against ICE
I think
across the country?
I think that they have brought it entirely upon themselves. When they started, every poll showed 80% of the American people were in favor of deporting the illegal aliens that came here during the Biden administration, okay? But since they have been enforcing that, since they have been rounding up people, every poll I have seen has gone down to where it's 41, 42% only now support that. Why? Because once again, the heavy-handedness of the Trump ICE people and how they handled it. I think they're doing the right job, but you have to do it with some finesse. You have to do it with some class. You have to do it with some understanding. You have to come across as humanitarians, not these terrible people who are breaking down doors, taking people out of nursery schools. I mean, none of that does you any good. And you're going to get to a point where you're not going to have any kind of support by the American people for this, and you're going to wind up with so many of these illegal aliens remaining in this country. That's how I feel about the situation. They brought it upon themselves.
What do you think, Thom?
I can't improve on that. I mean, that's just the way it is. Unfortunately, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. And in this particular situation, you had so many people that, miraculously came through the border because nobody could control it. Donald Trump gets elected, and all of a sudden you have almost zero number of people crossing the border. Now, how did that happen? How were we so inept at one time? And why can't we go back to when Reagan was president? Wasn't there a big deal about an immigration deal at the time and getting people to be able to come here? I mean, we are a country of settlers, and then immigrants have made us sustainable. My grandfather came through Ellis Island in 1903 as a farmer, Polish farmer, and he walked all the way west until he found good soil, and then he planted roots on the Alleghenies in Pennsylvania, northwestern Pennsylvania, raised 9 kids, and every one of those kids went on and did something worthwhile. Nurses, doctors. My dad was a B-24 pilot, 52 missions, daylight missions in Berlin and in Benghazi. I mean, people like that we need in the country. Why can't we have an immigration policy where we can do that and sustain it? Nobody's talking about doing that today. They're talking about moving people out. And I understand Obama was the deporter in chief, 2 million immigrants, et cetera. But this is not the way to do it. I think the congressman nailed it. I can't improve on it.
You mentioned Reagan. I was there when Reagan and Tip O'Neill and a few other people came together to give amnesty to a number of people who had been here for quite a while, who had no criminal record whatsoever. Now, that legislation passed. And it passed primarily because President Reagan, even though it was a Democratic initiative, President Reagan got on the phone, called people, asked people to do him a personal favor and vote for this because he thought it was good for the country. I know that he did that because I had announced on a number of occasions that I had great reservations about this particular program, and I didn't know if I was going to vote for it or not. And within a couple of days after making that statement, I get a call from the president, okay? We go over the whole situation. At the end, he says to me, Congressman, would you do me a personal favor? I don't ask this too often, but would you do me a personal favor and support this legislation? And I said, because I didn't want to tell him yes right then and there, I says, Mr. President, I'll give it serious consideration. And about 3 days later, I called up one of his right-hand men and said, I'm on board for the immigration bill, but only because the president is supporting this bill. That's what has to be done. Trump certainly isn't going to do anything like that. Biden didn't do anything like that. Even Obama didn't do anything like that. We need a president who has enough confidence in himself to go against his own party and vote for what is good for America. That immigration bill was good for America.
Yeah, I go ahead, Tom.
Congressman. When do you remember where you were when you got the call and you picked up the telephone? And Reagan was so good for small talk with folks. Can you just give us a little?
I was on Archer Avenue in my office at Archer Avenue.
Yeah,
he had called me on a few other occasions, and I said to whoever answered the phone in my office, it's got to be one of my friends calling, give me a time about Reagan because they know I'm a big fan of his. I get on the phone. Now I'm a little bit leery because this has happened before. So for a change, I don't say, hi, Ron, how are you? I say, hello, Mr. President, how are you? He says, oh, I'm wonderful. I'm wonderful. We're working on this immigration bill. And, just like now his memory, just like when the White Sox are fighting for a pennant and Bob Elson is doing everything he can for him up there in that booth to help him get to the pennant. I'm asking you to help me get to the finish line with my bill. That's how it started.
Very cool, man. And I love that, how people get along and, the little things that go on in a conversation, the big issues, you work on, but it's that relationship that you had with him. That's really, amazing, I think.
Well, he knew Bob Elson very well. I'm sure you remember Bob Elson.
Oh, yeah.
White Sox announcer.
Yeah, sure.
He also had that program from the pump room, which was very successful. Reagan had told me before, anytime he came through Chicago, he made sure he went on that program. Just in the event that he might run for president someday, he thought it'd be nice if everybody that listened to Bob knew him on a personal basis, sort of.
Wow.
It definitely helped him. But isn't that what the real problem, I think you both kind of touched on it, that nobody really is talking about immigration. Nobody's really talking about illegal aliens. They've just created a political line and they're taking sides on it. One example was they arrested a reporter for one of the local TV stations. I don't need to name the station or the reporter, and she was actually a producer, not a reporter. But the ICE, in my opinion, they did a terrible job of presenting their case. They arrested her because she was throwing rocks at the cars. And there's video. When you look on it, you see the video, and this is the producer. I'm just shocked that the TV station didn't take any action against her. But the ICE, it took them 3 to 4 weeks before they got that side of the story out. Nobody cares about the facts or the issues. It seems like they only care about the politics. And I think that in Chicago, politics is driving this opposition to ICE. I'm not against police, and I'm not against ICE agents, and I'm not against arresting people that are here illegally. My dad came here legally, in the 1920s through Ellis Island too. He didn't sneak across a border and then build a life and then, rely on sympathy to make people feel sorry for him. He became an American. That's what I'd like to see us go back to, but nobody's really talking about that anymore. They're only talking about one side is being brutal, the other side is illegal. There's no consensus, there's no solution. And isn't that our problem as a country?
Well, our problem as a country is we don't have enough politicians, quite frankly, in government. Reagan was a politician. Tip O'Neill was a politician. They both believed what was possible to get done. You had to compromise. They were both willing to compromise. They got that legislation passed. We don't have people like that anymore. Too many people in government believe one way in one way only, and we don't have opponents. We have enemies on the other side. That's what's so disgusting about the situation.
The parents are gone and the little kids are running the show. What do you think, Thom?
I can't improve on what the congressman said, nor what you just said. It's such a good opportunity to do a bipartisan program and offer those folks that are here, that are working, that have been here for a long time, and say, hey, you become a citizen. You take the language lessons. You understand our civics. You understand how we run our government. Understanding the voting process. You become a citizen in 3 or 5 years, whatever it is, and you go out and be a productive citizen. And you're a taxpayer. I mean, you're already contributing to our society, so you can continue to do those kinds of things and grow here. And we need the workers. And so, I mean, my goodness, it seems like right now, more than ever, a solution like that would be a calming way. In an irony, the Supreme Court decision on abortion, sending it back to the states, and the states then legalizing it or not, or whatever, managing it. I mean, that has settled that issue down considerably when it's back in the hands of the people. Was it Ronald Reagan said government is not the solution, it's the problem? Well, maybe a little less of that and more at the local levels, we'd be able to survive and get along better.
Great discussion, guys. Any final thoughts on any topics at all? Anything, Bill, Thom?
I'm happy that Thom was on the program today. I hope he can see his way clear in the future to come back and join us. And Ray, as usual, you've been brilliant.
Well, thank you. You're a good man. Yeah. Bill, you're the one that has the experience. You were on the front lines of politics in Washington, in Chicago for many years. Thom Serafin, phenomenal to have you on the program, too. We want to thank everybody for listening. We will be back next week. And please remember to go to twoguysonpolitics.com to listen to the program, to sign up, to get notices about it. We'll see you later, everybody. Bye-bye.
الو صباح الخير حماتي، بدي اشكيلك انه من يوم ما زوجي اكل عندكن اخر مرة ما بقى رضي ياكل من طبخي. كل يوم بيطلب أكلة رز من عندكن. كرمال الله خبريني شو السر؟
بسيطة، هذا رز محمود سيلة.
بجد؟ وشو المميز فيه؟
عدي على أصابعك، سهل الطبخ، حبة طويلة، ولونه الأبيض الناصع بزين أي سفرة.
وشو كمان؟ شوقتيني.
ريحته بتفتح النفس، وبناتي ما بيستعملوا غيره لأنه خفيف على المعدة وبيخليكي نحيفة يا بعدي.
أيوة، هلأ فهمت. الله يخلي لي إياكي يا حماتي، صار لازم بدل لرز محمود.
الرز محمود سيلة، كل حبة نختارها بعناية من حقولنا الغنية لتصل إلى مائدتك العامرة. اطلبيه الآن من أقرب سوبر ماركت لديك.
رز محمود، صحي وطيب.
Ziyad brand. Quality products from our family to yours. Ziyad Brothers Importing offers the finest quality products, including brands like Sultan, Kraft, Nestle, Hook, Rico Picon, Dana, and many more. Ask your retailer to carry these fine products because you deserve the very best. For more information, visit our website at www.ziyad.com. That's www.ziyad.com. Ziyad, quality products from our family to yours.